Imagine walking into the most dangerous prison on earth as nothing more than a teacher. And on your very first day, you discover that the students in front of you are not just criminals. They are monsters. They are locked inside a place called Fogland. In the middle of the desert, military vehicles were carrying a group of teachers toward a mysterious international prison. The entire place was surrounded by walls, fog, and heavy security from every direction. Among those teachers was a man named Dante Kang. Dante was a science teacher. But unlike most of the others, Dante was trying not to see the prisoners as monsters. He believed that education was a right for every human being, even if that human being was a dangerous prisoner. But Fogland was not a normal prison. 50 years ago, a massive meteorite fell into this desert. A few years later, a gigantic prison was built on that same spot. And from that day on, the rumors began. Some people said Fogland was not just a prison. They said it was a place built to contain things that were not human. Others said the place itself was connected to hell. Dante never believed those stories. To him, these prisoners were still human. Lost people. Broken people. And maybe education was the only chance they had left to change. But the moment Dante entered the classroom, he started to doubt everything. This was not a normal classroom. Dante stood on one side, the prisoners sat on the other, and between them was a thick wall of reinforced glass. That glass was not there to organize the lesson. It was there to protect the teacher from the students. Then the heavy door opened, and the prisoners walked in. In that moment, Dante realized that the rumors might not have been exaggerated. Huge bodies, strange faces, and eyes that did not look human. Still, Dante tried to control his fear. He told himself they were not monsters. They were just people. So he started the class. He introduced himself as their science teacher, and he decided to begin with the simplest lesson possible, a lesson about a sweet potato. He wanted to teach them a simple idea, that anything can grow if it receives the right care, even a human being, even someone who has lived in darkness. But the prisoners did not understand the message. One of them stared at the sweet potato in anger and asked, "Are you saying I'm a potato?" Dante tried to explain what he meant, but before he could finish, the prisoner started eating the sweet potato. Then the others started doing the same. The class turned into chaos, and then came the question that changed everything. One of the prisoners looked at Dante and asked, "How do we make fog?" Dante froze. That was not a normal question. This place was called Fogland, and the fog was part of the prison's greatest mystery. A prisoner asking how to create fog inside this place did not sound like a student trying to learn. It sounded like someone looking for a way to escape. Dante tried to avoid the question. He explained that fog forms when tiny droplets of water gather in the air. But the prisoner did not want a scientific explanation. He wanted the method. And when he did not get the answer he wanted, he struck the reinforced glass with his hand. Everyone stopped. The glass that was built to protect teachers from the most dangerous prisoners in the world started to crack. A second strike followed. Then the glass shattered. At that same moment, the prison alarm went off. Code Omega was declared. Armed forces stormed into the classroom. Dante thought they had come to take control of the situation, but the commander gave only one order. "Kill them all!" Gunfire tore through the room. Prisoners dropped one after another. Dante screamed for them to stop, but nobody listened. To the guards, these people were not students. They were threats. Threats that had to be erased. Then something happened that destroyed everything Dante believed. One prisoner stood in the middle of the gunfire. He did not fall. He did not even step back. Instead, he grabbed a soldier with one hand, lifted him off the ground, and tore him apart in front of everyone. In that moment, the balance of fear changed. The soldiers were no longer hunting the prisoners. The prisoners were hunting the soldiers. The classroom became a massacre, and the stories Dante had heard about Fogland were no longer rumors. These were not ordinary criminals. They were monsters. After an unknown amount of time, Dante opened his eyes. He was still alive, but he was no longer in the classroom. He was lying inside a small, filthy room, and in the corner, someone was sitting in silence. He wore an orange prison uniform. His head was covered with a black sack, and through that sack, one eye stared at Dante. Dante backed away and asked, "Who are you?" But the prisoner did not attack him. Instead, he told Dante that this place was his home. And then Dante's memories came rushing back. The classroom, the riot, the order to open fire, the guards being slaughtered, and the prisoners turning into monsters right in front of him. Dante understood the truth. He was still inside Fogland, but now he was locked in a cell, with a prisoner he knew nothing about. Dante tried to stay calm. He asked the masked prisoner why he had brought him here, but the answer was stranger than anything he expected. The prisoner lifted the sweet potato in his hand and asked Dante to teach him how to grow it. Dante could not believe what he was hearing. All that blood, all that terror, all that chaos. And this prisoner had kidnapped him just to learn how to grow a sweet potato? For a moment, Dante lost control. He shouted at him, but his anger did not last long, because he quickly remembered where he was. This was not a normal place, and this prisoner was not someone he could provoke carelessly. Then Dante noticed something. The prisoner seemed to be hiding something in his right hand. In Dante's mind, it had to be a knife, or a gun. If he waited too long, he might die, so Dante moved first. He rushed forward and tackled the prisoner to the ground. For 1 second, he thought he had the situation under control, but when he tried to grab the prisoner's right hand, he froze. The hand was not there. His arm had been cut off. The thing Dante thought was a weapon was not a weapon at all. The prisoner was only trying to hide his missing arm. Dante felt guilty, but he did not have time to apologize. He needed to get out. He ran to the iron door, expecting it to be locked, but the door was already open. And that was even worse, because inside a place like Fogland, an open cell door did not mean freedom. It meant the entire system had collapsed. Dante stepped outside, and when he saw what was beyond the cell, he could barely breathe. Fogland was not just a prison. It was an entire city inside the fog. Ruined buildings, open streets, distant towers, and prisoners walking freely everywhere. This place was much larger than he imagined. It did not feel like a prison. It felt like a separate world. Dante panicked and raised his voice, but the masked prisoner immediately covered his mouth. He told him to be quiet. No one escapes this place. The only thing Dante could do now was stay silent and survive. But Dante could not accept that. He said he was a normal citizen. He was not a prisoner. He was not like the criminals trapped in this place. That sentence was a deadly mistake, because his voice reached a massive prisoner nearby. The man's body was huge. His eyes glowed through the fog, and without warning, he attacked. The masked prisoner tried to protect Dante, but the strike still tore through Dante's clothes and threw him to the ground. Dante survived, but he learned one rule immediately. Inside Fogland, one wrong word can get you killed. Then the masked prisoner removed his orange uniform and threw it at Dante. He told him to put it on. Dante refused at first. He was afraid that if he looked like a prisoner, no one would recognize him as a teacher. But the masked prisoner told him the cold truth. There was no rescue team. The guards inside were dead. And if Dante kept wearing his teacher clothes, every prisoner would see him as a target. So Dante had no choice. He put on the prison uniform, and from that moment on, he no longer looked like a teacher who entered the prison by mistake. He looked like one of the prisoners trapped inside it. Then the masked prisoner said one simple thing: "Let's eat." In the middle of all that horror, Dante remembered that he had not eaten since morning, and the cafeteria might be his chance. Maybe there would be guards there. Maybe there would be a way out. So he followed the masked prisoner through the fog. But somewhere else in Fogland, a small prisoner was wearing Dante's stolen clothes. He was happy with them, like he had found a treasure. But his excitement ended when a terrifying man appeared behind him. The man was huge. He carried a massive sword, and when he asked where the clothes came from, the small prisoner froze. He called him boss. Then he told him that he had found a strange man in Tofu Village, a man with glasses, a man wearing expensive clothes. The boss's expression changed. Then he said quietly, "So that's where he was hiding." The small prisoner tried to laugh, but before he could finish speaking, the sword came down. In one moment, his body was split open. The boss did not care about anyone around him. He was looking for only one person, Dante. Meanwhile, Dante and the masked prisoner reached the cafeteria, and strangely, the place looked organized. Prisoners stood in line. Each one received a tray of food. Then they sat around the tables like this was normal. For a moment, Dante felt hope. If there was order here, then maybe there were still guards. Then he saw a man wearing a guard uniform. Dante approached him carefully. He lowered his voice and asked, "Are you a guard?" Then he quickly explained everything. He said he was Dante Kang, a science teacher from the outside. He said he had been kidnapped during the riot, and he begged the man to contact the authorities. But the man did not react. He did not look surprised. He did not call for help. He just stared at Dante with empty eyes. Then drool began to fall from his mouth, and before Dante could say anything else, the man shouted at him, "If you're not going to eat, get out of the line." Dante stepped back. In that moment, he understood. The uniform meant nothing. It could have been stolen. Its real owner could have been dead for years. There were no guards. There was no rescue. Dante sat down, trying not to break. Then he looked at the masked prisoner sitting beside him. The prisoner was eating quietly, as if everything was normal. And that was when Dante remembered the only thing this prisoner cared about: the sweet potato. Dante made an offer. He said he would teach him how to grow the sweet potato, but in return, the prisoner had to help him get out of Fogland. Dante thought he had found his weakness, but the masked prisoner stopped eating. Then he asked calmly, "Do you think I'm stupid?" Dante froze. This prisoner was not as foolish as he thought. He told Dante that escaping Fogland was not that simple. The only way out was to climb to the top. Dante did not understand. He wanted a door, a path, any clear answer, but the prisoner gave him nothing. So Dante lost his patience. He said he would escape on his own. He even started hinting that his family was powerful. But before he could finish, a voice called out from somewhere nearby. "Professor Kang, are you here?" Dante stopped. For 1 second, he believed the rescue team had finally arrived. He forgot every warning. He raised his hand and shouted, "I'm here! My name is Dante Kang. I'm a teacher." But the voice was not a rescue team. From between the prisoners, a massive shadow appeared, a tall man with a terrifying body, long hair, and a smile that made everyone around him go silent. Dante recognized him. This was the same monster who had been searching for him, one of the prisoners from Cell Block 0, one of the creatures Dante had seen slaughter the guards in the classroom. Everyone knew him by one name, the Tower. He stepped closer and smiled at Dante. Then he said, "Let's continue the lesson." And that is where today's story ends. Dante thought he was finally getting closer to a way out, but instead, the most terrifying prisoner in Fogland found him first. And whatever lesson the Tower wants now, it is not about sweet potatoes anymore.